My definition of success will probably be far different than everybody else's on the panel. I'll probably maybe be the lone dissenter, but my definition of success is having a family, having children, and being part of the apparatus of the world. And true wealth is a rejection of materialism. As Christ said himself, what good does it benefit a man to gain the entire world at the cost of his soul?
If you want to run your mouth, we can be two consenting adults. We can finish it here.
I'd love to do it right now.
Well, stand your butt up then.
You stand your butt up.
Oh, hold on.
Big guy.
Oh, stop it.
Is that your solution every poll?
You know, you're a United States Senator.
Do you have
Then the
money?
person-
Does he have money?
No.
Do you have money?
No, I don't have.
How much
I don't
money do
have.
you have?
I don't
Does he
have money. But here's the thing. Why is money
much-
valuable?
How much do you have money?
What is money valuable for?
Stop it! Just stop it! What's wrong with you? All you do is argue. You hate each other. Break up, for God's sake. Just give a divorce.
Let me ask you a question.
Hypothetical is hypocritical.
How do you even know what I was going to say before I've even been allowed to
I know
ask
what
the
you're
question?
gonna say.
Then what was I going to say?
You're going to say, why can't you ask the question?
Okay, so that's not what I was going to say. What I was going to say is, how in the world can you create a standard that it's inappropriate to ask somebody, how come if I don't have X thing, because I don't value X thing, does that mean X thing is actually valuable? Person's life.
Are you proud of who
Bro,
you are?
why
Well,
don't
look
you
at.
even
Are
let
you
me
proud?
get-
If you look in the mirror, would you guys say this proud of who the he is? That's a bag of trash, dude.
This doesn't appear to be the best way forward. How can we all make better arguments without becoming argumentative? Stay tuned until the end. If this is your first time here, please make sure and hit the subscribe button so that you never miss a video or an interview. Our goal is to help you enter into a confirmed, confident, and eternal relationship with the source of all life and purpose. Many Christians and others have been attacked for their positions on certain issues. Each side will often cite what they see as proof of their position, but often those proofs are more opinion-based or driven by experience than they are by sound, logical reasoning. This causes conversations to often devolve into people being argumentative instead of presenting sound and valid arguments. But winning an argument by way of yelling at or badgering the other person or group does not mean the argument is accurate. This is why philosophers have rules of logic and argumentation that they adhere to, so those who disagree with their conclusions will have to debunk the underlying premises instead of seeking to only undermine the person making the argument. For example, someone today may vociferously make the argument that Jesus never lived or was never crucified, but that does not align with the truth as uncovered through archaeology, historical analysis, or through an examination of ancient Near East cultures. Actually, the fact that Jesus died by crucifixion is admitted by many atheists. The atheist scholar Gerd Ludemann wrote, "Jesus' death as a consequence of crucifixion is indisputable." John Dominic Crossan of the Jesus Seminar, which sounds holy but is the furthest thing from Orthodox Christianity, said, "Jesus' death by crucifixion under Pontius Pilate is as sure as anything historical can ever be. For if no follower of Jesus had written anything for 100 years after his crucifixion, we would still know about him from two authors not among his supporters. Their names are Flavius Josephus and Cornelius Tacitus." In AD 73, we have a letter from a Syrian Stoic philosopher named Mara bar Serapion, where he writes, "What good did it do the Athenians to kill Socrates, for which deed they were punished with famine and pestilence? What did it avail the Samians to burn Pythagoras, since their country was entirely buried under sand in one moment? Or what did it avail the Jews to kill their wise king, since their kingdom was taken away from them from that time on?" So, in this brief example, this means that anyone who says that Jesus never lived or that he was never crucified is making an objectively false statement. Now, in thinking about the tenor of the day, there's much disagreement over a variety of issues, some religious, some political, some of another variety. However, some of the disagreement could be tempered or eliminated if everyone made sound arguments where the truth of the underlying premises could be analyzed. See, making a claim, even with a high emotional appeal, does not determine the truth of the claim.
I don't know what we're yelling about!
So how do we make better arguments? Well, first we need to understand what an argument actually is. An argument in philosophy is simply a set of reasons offered in support of some conclusion. So an arguer is a person who offers reasons for a specific conclusion. Notice that the definition does not state that the reasons do support a conclusion, and rather states reasons are offered or meant to support a conclusion, because there are bad arguments in which reasons do not support a conclusion. Arguments have two components: the conclusion and the reasons offered to support it. The conclusion is what an arguer wants people to believe. The reasons offered are called premises. Arguments, philosophical arguments, are good for several reasons. First, they force people to deal with the truth value of the statements in the argument. Second, it reduces the impact of emotional appeal. And third, good arguments keep the focus where it needs to be in order to reach the true conclusion, regardless of how much someone desires a different conclusion. This keeps the focus on the facts and not on the person delivering them. However, the danger lies in veering into being argumentative. Being argumentative shifts the focus from seeking truth to asserting dominance or winning at all costs. It sometimes devolves into a zero-sum game. It often involves aggression, a lack of respect for others' viewpoints, and a disregard for the relational aspect of dialogue. In theology and philosophy, being argumentative can undermine the very truths we seek to uphold, as it alienates rather than invites others to consider our perspectives. From a philosophical standpoint, thinkers like Socrates emphasize the importance of dialogue as a means of mutual understanding and the pursuit of wisdom. Socratic dialogue seeks not to defeat opponents but to uncover truths through reason, discourse, and respectful engagement. This approach respects the dignity of each participant and values the process of intellectual exploration over mere victory. Theological teachings also underscore the virtues of humility and charity in discourse. The Apostle Peter urges believers to always be prepared to give an answer to everyone who asks you to give the reason for the hope that you have. But notice the emphasis on giving reasons, making sound arguments, but doing so with gentleness and respect. Furthermore, the teachings of Jesus emphasize love for one another, even in disagreement. In the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus blesses the peacemakers and calls us to reconcile with our brothers and sisters before offering our gifts at the altar. Matthew 5:9 and 23-24. This attitude challenges us to prioritize relationships and mutual understanding over the desire to prove ourselves right. This does not mean that we abdicate truthful positions. It means that we state those positions in ways that invite rather than repel communication. As we delve into a fundamental aspect of engaging in discussions about faith and reason, the distinction between making sound arguments and being argumentative, this topic is not merely a matter of rhetoric, but delves deeply into philosophical and theological principles that guide our interactions. First, let's clarify what it means to make a sound argument. Sound arguments are rooted in logic, reason, and evidence. They aim to clarify truths and engage in constructive dialogue. In the realm of theology and philosophy, sound arguments allow us to articulate our beliefs clearly, defend them against objections, and contribute meaningfully to the pursuit of truth. One nuance that needs to be highlighted is the difference between a valid argument and a sound argument. A deductive argument is said to be valid if and only if it takes a form that makes it impossible for the premises to be true and the conclusion nevertheless to be false. Otherwise, a deductive argument is said to be invalid. A deductive argument is sound if and only if it is both valid and all of its premises are actually true. Otherwise, a deductive argument is unsound. Validity is a necessary condition in order for an argument to be sound. All invalid arguments are such that it is possible for them to have true premises and a false conclusion. But some invalid arguments actually do have all true premises and a false conclusion. Valid deductive arguments are those where the truth of the premises necessitates the truth of the conclusion. The conclusion cannot but be true if the premises are true. Arguments having this property are said to be deductively valid. A valid argument whose premises are also true is said to be sound. Validity in deductive reasoning is only a matter of form, that is, correctness in the act of inferring a conclusion from premises, regardless of what those are. Soundness refers to the truth or the accuracy or lack thereof in the premises that deductive reasoning uses to make those inferences. Validity says nothing about whether or not any of the premises are true. It only says that if they are true, then the conclusion must follow. So validity is more about the form of an argument rather than the truth of an argument. An argument is sound if it meets these two criteria. 1, it is valid. 2, its premises are true. In other words, a sound argument has the right form and it is true. Now, it's important to stress that the premises of an argument do not have to actually be true in order for the argument to be valid. An argument is valid if the premises and conclusion are related to each other in the right way, so that if the premises were true, then the conclusion would have to be true as well. Let's look at an example of an argument. Elizabeth owns either a Honda or a Saturn. Elizabeth does not own a Honda. Therefore, Elizabeth owns a Saturn. This argument in this form is called a syllogism. This argument is valid because it is impossible for the premises to be true and the conclusion nevertheless to be false. But we can recognize in the above case that even if one of the premises is actually false, that if they had been true, the conclusion would have been true as well. In order for this argument to be true, both of the underlying premises must be true as well. And in this case, we don't know that they are. For example, consider these two arguments. All tigers are mammals. No mammals are creatures with scales. Therefore, no tigers are creatures with scales. Second argument. All spider monkeys are elephants. No elephants are animals. Therefore, no monkeys are animals. These arguments share the same form. All A are B. No B are C. Therefore, no A are C. All arguments with this form are valid. Because they have this form, the examples above are valid. However, the first example is sound, while the second is unsound, because its premises are false. A good argument is not only valid, but also sound. Soundness is defined in terms of validity. So since we have already defined validity, we can now rely on it to define soundness. A sound argument is a valid argument that has all true premises. That means the conclusion of a sound argument will always be true. Why? Because if an argument is valid, the premises transmit truth to the conclusion on the assumption of the truth of the premises. But if the premises are actually true, as they are in a sound argument, then since all sound arguments are valid, we know that the conclusion of a sound argument is true. The relationship between soundness and validity is easy to specify. All sound arguments are valid arguments, but not all valid arguments are sound arguments. As far as the ability to access or ascertain sound and true arguments, theism and a Judeo-Christian worldview in particular provide the basis for sound argumentation, whereas naturalism doesn't seem to have that capacity. Alvin Plantinga said that in philosophy, knowledge is warranted true belief. And a belief has warrant for some person if and only if that belief was formed by cognitive faculties that are functioning properly and in accordance with a good design plan and a cognitive environment appropriate for the way those faculties were designed, and when the design plan for our faculties is aimed at obtaining truth. The question then arises, does naturalism profess a good design plan where cognitive faculties can grow? Moreland responds, now the notion of proper functioning, understood as functioning the way something ought to function, makes clear sense for artifacts that are designed by an intelligence. Why? Because the claim that something functions the way it ought to is easily understood in terms of functioning the way it was designed to function. The naturalist owes us an account of what it would mean for humans to have properly functioning cognitive and sensory faculties that can avoid the idea of a designer. and, says Plantinga, those accounts have not been successful. This would imply that a prerequisite for sound reasoning can only be sustained in a theistic framework where a designer is present. And this leaves the Christian on solid ground to be able to make sound arguments from a biological perspective. However, Christian or not, arguments still need to be sound when they are delivered. That means that the premises must be true and valid. Everyone should make sound arguments when he or she is professing their beliefs. Christians should likewise seek to present sound arguments for the truth of the gospel and regarding the nature of God without veering into being argumentative. For reasons stated in a number of other videos pertaining to the evidences from history, science, archaeology, and philosophy, the Christian is on solid ground to make sound arguments and should do so with clarity, confidence, and care, so that those who are listening will be able to hear and be impacted by the arguments themselves and not by the arguer. A few points are helpful to consider here. First, how does a theologian present an argument for the existence, omniscience, or salvific work of God without utilizing philosophy to some degree? Second, in order for theology or a Christian worldview to obtain or regain its rightful place in academia, it will need to demonstrate sound reasoning for its principal tenets. Now, this is not to say that if the academy doesn't align with or affirm Christianity that somehow the battle is lost. Rather, since Christianity is a system undergirded by certain truth claims, it is only to the benefit of the Christian to be able to intelligently present reasons for those claims. Thirdly, to disregard philosophy as antithetical or even as an enemy of faith is to abandon a discipline largely concerned with rational thinking. In a society already antagonistic to any claims of religious truth, this would validate the incorrect but largely agreed upon conclusion that religious claims have no bearing in reality. In conclusion, while making sound arguments is crucial for defending our faith and engaging in meaningful dialogue, being argumentative undermines those efforts.
Loud noises!
Let us strive, therefore, to emulate the virtues of humility, gentleness, and respect in our discussions. By doing so, we not only uphold the integrity of our beliefs, but also honor the relational aspect of dialogue and embody the teachings of our faith. In fact, I recommend that you check out this video on how to have effective conversations with friends and family. May we continue to grow in wisdom and grace as we navigate these important discussions together. But I would love to know your thoughts in the comments. How do you feel about all the arguing you see on social media or in politics or in the public square? What strategies do you employ in order to make sure you're making sound arguments? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and until next time, peace.